Before you scrape that strange mud tube off your wall, stop. Not tomorrow. Not after this video. Right now. Walk outside for a moment and think about the last time you saw one. Maybe it was attached beneath a porch roof. Maybe it was hidden in the corner of a garage. Maybe it was stuck to a brick wall near your front door. A strange little structure made entirely of dried mud. Most people barely look at it. Some knock it down immediately. Others assume it is evidence of an infestation. Something dirty. Something dangerous. Something that should not be there. But let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered what is actually inside it? Not what you think is inside. What is really inside? Because if you broke one open right now, you would discover something that most Americans never realize. That little mud tube is not a random pile of dirt. It is not construction debris. It is not damage. It is a nursery, a carefully engineered home, built grain by grain, for a creature that spends nearly its entire life helping your yard. And chances are, you have already seen the builder. Long legs, narrow waist, slow flight, often mistaken for a dangerous wasp. The kind that makes people nervous the second it appears. The kind that sends homeowners searching for sprays. But here's the strange part. The insect responsible for that mud nest is one of the least aggressive wasps in North America. In fact, most people could stand a few feet away from it all day and never experience a problem. Yet every year, thousands of these nests are destroyed. Not because the insect caused damage, not because it attacked anyone, but because people never learned what it was actually doing. And what it is doing may surprise you, because hidden inside that mud tube are not eggs alone. There are prisoners, living prisoners, creatures collected one by one, carried through the air, locked inside a chamber, waiting, frozen in time. If that sounds disturbing, you're not alone. Nature often is, but every one of those prisoners serves a purpose that begins with one of the most misunderstood insects in America. And before this story is over, you may never look at those strange mud nests the same way again. Quick question. Have you ever removed one of these nests from your house? Or do you leave them alone? Let me know in the comments, because the answer usually reveals exactly how much people know about the creature that built it. The strange part is that the mud nest is not the most remarkable thing this wasp builds. The remarkable thing is what it puts inside. Because the first time researchers carefully opened some of these chambers, they didn't find empty rooms. They found bodies, not dead bodies, living ones, spiders, dozens of them, completely motionless, yet somehow still alive. Imagine discovering a hidden room inside your wall, filled with creatures frozen in place, unable to move, unable to escape, waiting. That is essentially what exists inside many mud dauber nests. And every one of those spiders arrived there the same way. Captured, transported, stored, one by one. The female mud dauber spends much of her life searching for spiders. Not randomly, not desperately, precisely. She knows exactly what she is looking for. A movement beneath a leaf, a shape beneath outdoor furniture, a web hidden inside a corner. Then she attacks. The strike is fast, often over in seconds, and when it is finished, the spider remains alive, but completely helpless. The first time most people hear this, they assume something has gone wrong. Why not simply kill the spider? Why keep it alive? The answer reveals just how extraordinary this insect really is. Because the spider is not prey. Not yet. The spider is food storage, living food storage. A biological refrigerator that requires no electricity, no cooling, no maintenance. The spider stays fresh because it is still alive. And every chamber may contain multiple spiders collected over many days. Now think about that for a moment. While most of us barely notice these insects flying around our homes, they are carrying out one of the most sophisticated survival strategies in nature. Building a nursery, stocking it with food, protecting it from weather, protecting it from predators, preparing for an offspring that has not even hatched yet. But the story becomes even stranger, because eventually the female lays a single egg. Then she seals the chamber forever and leaves. No return visits, no parental care, no feeding, no protection. Everything that offspring will ever need has already been placed inside the chamber before the egg was even laid. And then something remarkable happens. The egg hatches. A tiny larva emerges, blind, soft, completely helpless, yet surrounded by enough food to sustain its entire development. What happens next sounds almost impossible. The larva begins feeding, but not randomly, not carelessly. Researchers discovered that the larva consumes the spiders in a specific order, saving the most important organs for last, keeping the food alive for as long as possible. In other words, the larva is not simply eating, it is managing a food supply, a strategy refined through millions of years of evolution. And if you're wondering whether nature can really be that precise, you're not alone. Many scientists were amazed when they first documented the behavior, because this tiny insect appears to solve a problem that every parent in nature faces. How do you provide food for offspring you will never meet? The mud dauber solved that problem long ago, and it solved it brilliantly. Which brings me to a question. Have you ever knocked down one of these mud nests? Be honest, most people have. I know I probably would have before learning this story. But now imagine destroying that nest, not realizing it contained an entire future generation. Not realizing it represented weeks of work, hundreds of flights, dozens of captured spiders, one of Winter's most carefully engineered nurseries. And yet, that's exactly what happens every day. Because most people never learn what is actually inside. They only see mud, they never see the story. And eventually, the moment arrives. The larva has finished feeding. The spiders are gone. The chamber that once looked like a prison has become something else entirely. A cocoon, a transformation chamber, a place where one life ends and another begins. Hidden behind a wall of dried mud, the larva begins changing. Slowly, silently, completely. The soft body that emerged from the egg starts reorganizing itself. New structures form. Wings develop. Powerful legs appear. The narrow waist of the adult takes shape. And over the course of several weeks, a creature that looked nothing like a wasp becomes exactly that. Then one day, after spending nearly its entire life hidden from the world, it begins digging, not downward, upward, toward the light, toward the outside world, toward a world it has never seen before. Eventually, a small hole appears in the side of the mud chamber. Then another. Then a head emerges. For the first time, a new mud dauber enters the world. And almost immediately, the cycle begins again. It searches, it explores, it learns to fly, and before long, it starts building nests of its own. The remarkable thing is that most of this happens right beside us, on our garages, under our porches, along fence posts, behind outdoor lights, places we walk past every day without a second thought. Yet hidden inside those small tubes of mud is one of the most extraordinary stories in nature. A story of engineering, a story of patience, a story of survival, and perhaps most importantly, a story of balance. Because every spider carried into those nests is one less spider reproducing somewhere else. Every nest represents dozens of spiders removed from the environment, not through chemicals, not through traps, not through human intervention, but through a natural system that has existed for millions of years. And this is where many people begin to see mud daubers differently, not as pests, not as threats, but as workers, quiet workers, flying through the yard every day, doing a job most people never notice. The irony is that one of the insects people fear the most is often one of the least likely to cause them harm. Mud daubers are remarkably non-aggressive. Unlike social wasps, they do not defend large colonies. They do not swarm. They do not patrol picnic tables searching for food. In most cases, they simply want to be left alone, to build, to hunt, to continue a cycle that has been unfolding since long before our houses existed. And that brings us back to the mud nest, the one you almost scraped off the wall, the one you may have seen 100 times before, the one that looked like nothing more than dried dirt. Now you know better. Because that little structure is not a mess. It is not damage. It is not evidence of an infestation. It is evidence that nature is still working, still balancing itself, still solving problems without asking for our help. And perhaps that is the most fascinating part of all. So let me ask you something. The next time you find one of these mud nests on your home, what will you do? Will you remove it? Will you leave it alone? Has this story changed the way you see them? I'd genuinely love to know. Tell me in the comments. And while you're there, tell me what state you're watching from. I'm always amazed by how many people discover these nests in completely different parts of the country. Because every observation tells us something about the hidden wildlife sharing our homes. The wildlife we rarely notice. The wildlife we often misunderstand. And sometimes, the wildlife we accidentally destroy before we ever learn its story. The next time you see a strange mud tube on a wall, Pause for a moment. Look closer, because behind that dried mud may be one of the most remarkable little builders in North America, and one of the most misunderstood